Subscribe right now and hit the bell. Then you won't miss a chapter. And give the show a like. Comment with any thoughts and questions, and I will be happy to chat with you. Thanks for helping out this independent author.
The house. 18, sighed Josh. I've been waiting for 2 years to see this day, he exclaimed to Rachel as he reached out and gave her hand an affectionate squeeze. They sat together happily by the sunny window in his room. Rachel looked at him with her golden brown eyes sparkling in the sunlight and gave him her gorgeous white smile. She is perfect, thought Josh to himself with a deep realization as Rachel replied, Ha! Yep, I hear all about your plans for that money from Mr. M every week, I think. But I want to see the inside of that amazing house you are getting. There must be treasures around every corner of that place. Oh, wow. Josh drew out in a long breath. I almost forgot about that place for a minute. It is pretty amazing, isn't it? At least from the outside, anyway. Oh, I wonder if there are more cars in the garage. Or maybe there are service robots that are ready to serve our every whim. Our? Responded Rachel with an inquisitive smile. Josh just gave her a little raise of the eyebrows in response. So she leaned into him, put her head on his shoulder, and stared off into space. Then Josh said in an overly thoughtful tone, About to make a sandwich whenever I want. Yeah, I'm gonna need a sandwich button for sure. Rachel snickered at him. After a few seconds, she spoke with conviction. Really, though, I bet it would make a very good home. Josh paused, then whispered back, I think you might be right, and gave her a long squeeze. He went on, Let's go look at it right away. But I got to talk to you a little more about the guy from the EGO. Rachel lifted her chin to look at him. Sure, what's up? She asked. Well, he's really been in my head a lot. I just can't shake it. I mean, he looked just like me, but maybe slightly more like a chiseled Greek statue than I do, Josh said with a smirk. And the way he looked at me, it was like he was surprised and all, but also like he knew me. He knew who I was, and he hated me. Rachel, I just don't understand what that was about. It was all so strange. And then the way Dr. D spoke to me before we left, it was like he was hinting that he knows more about me than he's letting on. Man, I don't know, he ended with a frustrated sigh. Well, I don't know what to say about all that, she said. But I like Dr. D, and maybe you should just go back and talk to him straight out about it all. Josh said, Yeah, maybe you're right, but what do I do? Walk in there and say, Hey there, is your son my evil twin brother? Rachel rolled her eyes in objection and replied, Of course that is not a good plan, but we do have to find out what's going on in a natural way. I was already considering that summer internship that Dr. D mentioned, so why don't we both apply for it, and I bet you we both get accepted. Plus, it would be fun to work there on genetics together, not to mention the experience and resume builder it would be. Josh quickly turned to face her and took both of her hands in his. Then, right when he had all of her inquisitive attention, he stated with excited conviction, Rachel, you are a beautiful genius. Rachel's face broke into her perfect smile, and she gave him a strong, quick kiss on the cheek. Come on, let's go get the keys and look at our new house now, she blurted out as she stood up and pulled him out his open bedroom door. Josh said quickly, Our new house? As he allowed himself to be pulled along. The two 18-year-olds pulled up to the front of the house in the open blue Jeep. Josh double-tapped his wireless earpiece to shut it off and then spoke to Rachel. Mr. Greenwich says there are no keys and he'll be here in a minute to set up the security system with my biometrics. He says there is a lot to show us. The system is completely custom, and he'll be here soon to explain it all in person. Man, this is so cool. When the rents come over after work today and Dad sees this system, he's going to blow a circuit. Well, said Rachel in a relaxed tone as she turned to the open mountainous view behind them, we can enjoy the scenery while we wait. Look, Josh, that beach is just a short ride away. She pointed down past the curving roads that meandered their way through a variety of thick green coniferous trees. The occasional chic multi-million-dollar home dotted the landscape along the roads, decorating the view with reflecting solar roofs and expensive shiny cars. Off to the right, the red and gray cliffs wrapped in around the small bay before disappearing out into the little peninsula that it formed. The elevated spot on this southwest-facing hillside made a natural, cozy place for the beautiful home that now stood before them. The two turned to inspect the home closer, which was mostly light gray with sections of white accents. This basic coloring, along with its modern architecture of strong horizontal composition and intentional asymmetry, gave the home its simple, elegant styling. Most of the walls were actually just huge windows for almost the entire span of each section. These windows would allow an imposing view of the interior from the outside if they weren't tinted dark as they were now. Also, there was no typical front yard of grass. Instead, a beautiful myriad of rock-lane pathways wound through an amazing lush garden. Upon approaching the obvious entry of a white lattice archway covered with green vines, the two paused when Josh put his hand out to inspect the green and white cluster attached to a vine. He exclaimed, "Oh wow, I think these are grapevines." He looked down the fence of identical plants. "These are all grapevines. I love grapes. How fun!" exclaimed Rachel. They continued through the archway along the path and looked at all the plants and the occasional flowering tree they passed. Rachel then spoke with emphasis. "Josh, all of these plants are food. There are orange and apple trees. Here are tomato vines and cucumbers, I think. This is a for-real garden." "Wow, I guess Mr. M liked his fresh produce a lot," Josh responded. Then he reached up and plucked a juicy-looking orange and stated with fervor, "I'll happily eat the fruit." Then he popped a section into his mouth that left him wiping juice from his chin and mmming to himself as he munched. At that moment they heard a slight whirring hum, and down the path, a short distance, came a small two-wheeled bot. It was leaf green and about waist-high, moving slowly near the plants, inspecting them as it wheeled along. They watched as it occasionally stopped and extended its arms to pluck a weed or trim a branch. It then placed the cuttings in a small compartment, only to shred it and deposit the contents at the base of another plant nearby, instantly composting the previous bits of vegetation for use as a natural fertilizer. The little bot went right by them without any more recognition than slightly changing its path in order to clearly avoid them. Josh noticed that the head was a sphere with a flattened top, being a solar panel. The panel constantly facing the sun with automatic tracking, no matter where the bot turned. There was a collar-like section that cradled the sphere with 4 obvious bug-eye-like cameras. They were spaced evenly around the collar and gave the bot an apparent 360-degree view. "Fantastic! I knew there would be robots," thought Josh. "Hello, Mr. Macias," Mr. Greenwich said to Josh as he came around a bend in the garden path. Josh and Rachel looked up at the unexpected but welcome interruption. Josh responded with a smile and said, "Hello, sir. I don't think anyone has ever called me that before." Mr. Greenwich approached the two with pleasant and professional demeanor. "Ma'am," he said as he shook her hand and gave her a polite nod. Then, while he and Josh shook, he said, "Well, young sir, you are 18 now with a growing personal income, a large inheritance, and also this beautiful home to make your own. So, with your acceptance of these responsibilities, I address you as Mr. Macias, as a sign of the man you now are." Josh paused for a moment as he realized what was truly taking place on this day. Then, with a happy glimmer in his eye, he said, "You make a good point, Mr. Greenwich. I am ready. Now let's check out this amazing home." Rachel watched as Josh walked up to the door. Maybe she was imagining it, but she thought that Josh stood a little taller and walked with a little more confidence than he had before. He was no longer, she realized, the sweet and smart boy she had known, but was now a capable and wealthy man. And he loved her. She knew he did, and she knew it completely and without a doubt. She knew this fact just as deeply as she knew Daddy loved her, and she made up her mind right then to always appreciate and recognize his love with true thankfulness. She would do her best to give her love to him freely and with grace, whatever that may mean. Mr. Greenwich stepped up to the huge double doors next to Josh, but there were no handles. He paused briefly and looked to the right at the nearby wall. Faintly engraved into the wall was the creation of Adam, that famous fresco by Michelangelo that depicts God and Adam reaching toward each other with fingers not quite touching. The tall Southern lawyer then spoke 2 words with forced enunciation. "Access Greenwich." Immediately, the doors opened inwardly with a smooth and soundless motion, revealing a large open room with very high ceilings. They noticed, upon entering, a beautiful porcelain white kei-kawaii grand piano and many plush chairs and couches. Together they formed a very nice sitting area where one could easily imagine a gathering of refined adults enjoying an evening of live entertainment. "I heard him play it rarely, but rather beautifully. He must have played it frequently in his spare time," commented Greenwich with a note of fond personal memories as he had noticed Josh's lingering gaze on the piano. Once they had walked in a short way, Josh asked, "It's so dark. Can we turn on—" And as he was speaking, he noticed that the darkness was already beginning to subside. Apparently, those huge darkly tinted windows automatically lightened gradually to full clarity upon entering. Mr. Greenwich then commented with a smile, "Dr. McCurr loved the natural sunlight and boasted often of its many benefits to the human body. Plus, there is no reason to waste the power on lighting during the day when the sun does a much better job for free. You'll find that your new home is very well thought out, highly advanced, and no cost was spared in its optimization to meet Dr. McCurr's requirements for function, security, and simple beauty. Come now, let me show you around, and then we'll get you set up with a security system." They followed Mr. Greenwich through the two-story house as he explained the basic layout of the modern 6,000-plus square foot home, not including the shop, as it was termed. As the group walked, they noticed that all of the walls, ceilings, and most of everything was bone white, with exception of the floors. For the most part, each room had some different type and shade of gray flooring. This was apparently to hide any obvious dirt or other such debris that would have caused mental irritation to Dr. McClure. Mr. Greenwich also pointed out specific pieces of art throughout the house that popped out against the continuous white backdrop of the walls. He explained that most of the pieces were not really that costly, but each was special. The pieces were originals that skilled friends had made and gifted him, or favorites that McClure had purchased in order to support other talented young artists that he appreciated. Every room had a mic and subtle speakers for querying the internet and giving the house commands for desired security or function. When they came to the kitchen, Mr. Greenwich explained that it was fully equipped for a chef, but Mr. M had mostly eaten various sandwiches, smoothies, and salads made with fresh fruits and vegetables from the garden. Upon turning from the kitchen, Rachel immediately reacted in awe and commented with a gasp, "This is amazing!" The simple gray and white of the kitchen was starkly contrasted by the brilliant colors on the opposite far wall. The entire wall, in fact, was a masterpiece of a mural with intricate detail. It pictured a host of interacting inventive creatures, fantastically oversized plants loaded with fruits and vegetables, and there in the center were the only humans. A small man and woman stood together with their naked backs in view. Their faces looked up toward the branches of a large, beautiful tree that stood as the center, eye-catching image of the entire wall. "Ah, yes," Mr. Greenwich acknowledged her reaction knowingly. "The garden is a piece that was specially commissioned from a friend's autistic daughter. Her sole passion and ability is painting. It is a wonder, too, as she can hardly even speak in order to express herself, but she can paint like no one else, as you have noticed. It really is quite captivating, isn't it?" Then he turned back toward the kitchen with a pleased look on his face. "Push that button," said Mr. Greenwich to Josh as he pointed to the side of the counter. He did so, and half of the countertop slowly elevated about a foot, and lights glowed underneath to reveal the contents below. Josh's eyes went big as he blurted out, "No way!" and Rachel laughed boisterously when she saw what was there. Lit up nicely was about 10 feet of refrigerated containers with various breads, meats, cheeses, and veggies, all for making the desired sandwich of the moment. "Hungry?" asked Mr. Greenwich with a smirk. "I took the liberty of having it stocked for you." Josh replied sincerely, "That is fantastic. You must have read my mind. Thank you." And 3 delicious sandwiches were made in no time. Josh asked between bites, "So the kitchen seems like an odd place for such a large catching mural. Why here and not in the foyer or something?" Mr. Greenwich replied, Maybe he put it here because people tend to spend time eating and socializing in the kitchen. Anywhere else it might be passed by too briefly to be really appreciated." Then with an almost unobservable smile he added, "Or maybe it was some other reason." Mr. Greenwich stood up with a slight groan after finishing the meal and said, "Now then, since we are all a bit fatter, let's set up our biometrics for the security system. But sadly, I must require Miss Rachel to stay behind as the main system functionality is centered in the shop. Dr. McClure left strict instructions that Mr. Macias alone is to have access there initially, although after a short period you are then in complete control of the system and may allow access to anyone you deem trustworthy." Rachel frowned with obvious disapproval as Josh looked at her, but with a tone of slight sarcasm, she graciously said, "Well, go on to your secretive shop full of amazing gizmos and awesomeness without me." Mr. Greenwich smiled and responded, "We'll only be 30 minutes or so, and in the meantime you can play with the entertainment wall in the next room. You'll understand it better than me, I'm sure." Mr. Greenwich then turned back to squarely face the beautiful mural once again. "Access Greenwich," he said just as before. To the surprise of both Josh and Rachel, the entire wall almost silently hinged back at an angle that created a space of about 6 feet. Only darkness was evident past the opening that appeared there before them, but Josh's brain was already spinning with curiosity of what lay beyond. Josh exclaimed then, "A secret passageway!" "That is so cool," said Rachel with a shocked expression. Mr. Greenwich turned to them with an amused look, and then, motioning forward, he spoke. "Shall we, Mr. Macias?"
Be sure to share the show with friends and write an Amazon review. Get the entire audiobook right now. Go to sa.vanderwarf.com to get it at an extremely discounted price. To receive the free ebook and my wallpaper book cover image, just sign up for the newsletter at sa.vanderwarf.com. Then you can be notified for the release of the anticipated sequel to The Man Who Made Himself. Thanks so much and enjoy the gifts.